Hi, I'm Pratim Ranjan Bose, and you are watching podcast with Pratim presented by Iravati Research and Communication Center or IRCC. In this episode, we will discuss Bangladesh. I have with me Captain Alok Bansal, Director of Delhi-based India Foundation. Captain Bansal is one of the finest experts on regional affairs. Welcome to you, sir. Sir, 6 months after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina and arrival of Dr. Mohammad Yunus in power, how do you see Bangladesh situation evolving? Economy, politics, governance, security, protection of minorities, etc. Over to you, sir.
See, firstly, we need to be very clear that the government has actually still not been able to take roots. The police, half of it is still not functioning. There are a skeleton police force. Most of the government organizations are functioning below par, and economy is suffering. There is a huge setback to the economy. The main economic activities are at a standstill. And I think if the current trend continues after the winters, when the power requirement rises, there is bound to be great chaos and problems. Because as of now, winters, because there's a vegetable production, there is actually power requirement is low, things are better off. I feel once the winter season passes away, the things will become worse. And what is happening is that Yunus really doesn't have an acceptability. He doesn't have a cadre. He doesn't have a backing. He may be popular in some places, but he doesn't have a grassroots level organization to support him. And as a result, the fundamentalists, primarily Jamaat, Harkot, etc., are capturing various organs of government. They are installing their people in different organs of the government, and they are trying to consolidate their position because they know they cannot win the electoral battle.
I was surprised the other day when the press advisor to Dr. Yunus claimed in a talk show that they are a political government. Uh, Apparently, it is a military-backed, non-political government. But anyway, strange things in Bangladesh. You're right, sir. Hardcore Islamists, as it looks on the surface, the Jamaat-e-Islami is trying to form a Islamic coalition, and students are being pushed into or encouraged to form a King's Party. Now, that's very interesting. That also ensures that these are the political cohorts of the government. And when we say politics, the politics of the students is undisclosed or undefined. Having said that, the student as a class has disintegrated over the last 6 months. Many victims of July uprising are protesting against Yunus administration. Only a day or two ago, they marched towards the Yunus's residence. A section of students in the power orbit are trying to take control of things. Clearly, the government or Yunus administration wants to retain a direct and indirect stake in the power through the Islamists and the new party. Will this plan be successful?
See, firstly, your statement that press advisor telling that we are a political movement. Let's be very clear. Army is not firmly backing the administration. Let's be very clear. Army, after facilitating Sheikh Hasina's departure, is only maintaining its interference in the government to the bare minimum. And thereafter, they have managed to retain the president. And that is because they know that president and army chief are mutually dependent on each other. And that's why these two organs have been retained of the so-called turmoil period. The second factor is that the students have been saying that they will resign and start the political party. And then they're also extremely uncertain because they know once they resign, they may not be able to come back. So that you are seeing to and fro that yes, two will resign, one will resign, one will resign, two will resign because they really don't know. And they have no background. I think it is their wishful thinking. And this King's Party concept comes from pro-Pakistan elements who are used to King's parties being formed in Pakistan. So, of course, initially in Bangladesh also, both Ziaur Rahman and Irshad managed to form King's parties, which successfully ruled for a certain period of time. Whether it will succeed now is debatable, because now, let me be very clear, contrary to what people believe, the present dispensation does not enjoy unambiguous support of the army. Army itself is fractured. This is not an army-backed government, contrary to what people believe. Army is only actually a bystander, unfortunately, and that's a sad part, because that uh, action of his, the army, basically the army chief, has actually led to this sort of a situation that we are seeing. And the religious political parties or the extremists know that they do not have the mass support to come to power. So what they are doing is that they have their sympathizers in the government. They are trying to capture the government at lower levels. That's the strategy which they are working out. That irrespective of what happens, they capture the organs of the government at lower level. BNP realizes that if there is an element today, and considering the fact that there is no level playing field available to Awami League, they'll come to power. So that is what BNP is thinking, and that's why BNP wants to go for an election as early as possible. And the reason why interim administration will not go for an election is because they know neither the students nor the Jamaat can win an election if they are held even today. And if they allow a level playing field, Awami League could emerge as the single largest party, because there is about 30% support for Awami League, and with each passing day, the interim administration is becoming unpopular.
Yes. And also, I believe the excessive bashing of Awami League and Hasina has actually bounced back on them. The couple of internet polls that came out clearly saw the Awami League has regained some grounds.
See, there is no doubt that Sheikh Mujib is the Bangabandhu. He's the founder of Bangladesh. Now you start denigrating him. His house has been burnt. Now these are historical artifacts. Now you can't deny that. Now people are realizing that this movement, this government has been hijacked by pro-Pakistani elements who were anti-liberation all through. So obviously, with the passage of time, people will turn. Unfortunately, Awami League and its sympathizers are not being provided a medium to propagate their views, as was seen very clearly by the arrest of those people who were distributing leaflets. No social media platforms, etc., no TV channels are available to them. Print media also cannot print articles supporting them. Their leaders have been arrested, and fabricated charges have been slapped on them. So under that sort of a scenario, people are turning towards Awami League, but that is not happening en masse. And what the government is trying to do, and government sympathizers are trying to do, they know that they'll not be able to sustain a campaign against Awami League and Sheikh Mujib. Their economic conditions will continue to deteriorate. So to divert attention, a large section of the propaganda is being used to whip up anti-India sentiments. Now, this is what is dangerous from our point of view, because this government is trying to whip up, while they have the deniability saying that we are not doing it, but their sympathizers are trying to whip up anti-India sentiment in Bangladesh.
Yeah, they cannot escape that anymore, that they are doing it. We will come to that. But here are two quick questions. One, assuming that Awami League, they are trying to follow a -2 formula. So where they will keep Awami League and Jatiyo Party out of the election frame. But assuming that the international community forces them to amend that and give, allow Awami League and Jatiyo Party contest the polls. But can the international community ensure the political space, basic political rights to these people?
See, firstly, the moment Awami League and Jatiya Party are allowed into the election fold, unless, of course, they withdraw the cases against the leaders of these parties, there is no point. Because there should be somebody who should be able to come out. Because as of now, what has happened is that Awami League has support but doesn't have leaders. Jatiya Party does have leaders but doesn't have support. So we have a situation like this. I think what the international community would be happy with is, I think, provide some sort of a level playing field where Awami League leaders are allowed to campaign, to go inside Bangladesh and campaign. I think if that is allowed, you will see Awami League winning substantive seats, if not all. There will be substantive gain as far as Awami League seats are concerned. And I think the international community can force, and that will also ensure that the interim administration starts weakening, because the moment Awami League leaders are allowed to come in, you will see the groundswell of support for them. And army, as I told you, is a bystander. As long as army remains on the by the sidelines and is not doing anything, you will find that the interim administration will start weakening. So that is a distinct feasibility, because as of now, they have packed the judiciary with their man, the administration has been packed with their man. I think that will start moving away, because if you have elections are announced and you see certain amount of weakening of interim administration's power, you will see even the judiciary and the government officials will start acting more and more impartially if they see that there is even a glimmer of hope on the horizon.
BNP has clearly said that for elections, there should be an interim government. I mean, to put it differently, they don't want Yunus government to run the election, to conduct the election. So, do you think that there will be such change of? You saying that the moment election is announced, some changes are expected. So, do you see that as a possibility of army taking more active role?
Yeah, there were reports about former army chiefs being appointed as the interim head of the interim administration. But it seems to have frittered away, because I think the present ruling dispensation realizes that the moment this is taken away, uh, firstly, they will lose all power. Secondly, more importantly, at a future date, they'll also be accountable for their actions. This is actually illegitimate government. This is illegal. Tomorrow, they can also be prosecuted. They have fabricated charges against Awami League ministers and leaders, but tomorrow there can be genuine charges against them for actually usurping power, uh, for taking steps which were unconstitutional. So they are, I think, to that extent scared and are unwilling to do so, unless, of course, pushed by the army to do so.
Sir, you said fabricated charges against the Awami League. This just a quick question, but don't you think that Awami League should have also been held responsible to some extent?
See, there is no doubt Awami League is responsible for bringing about this sort of a situation by not allowing an opposition to emerge. I think once BNP had taken a call not to contest the elections, Awami League should have actually provided space for either Trinamool BNP or Jatiya Party to emerge as a genuine opposition party. Unfortunately, it is also a failure of these leaders of these political parties, both Trinamool BNP as well as Jatiya Party, who did not try to occupy the opposition space, rather they tried to become a B team of Awami League. Thereby, as far as public was concerned, they were the same. Similarly, even the left parties, JASOD, etc., that is JSD, and Workers' Party, etc., they also did not do anything to emerge as an opposition party. The Awami League government should have allowed some opposition space, should have allowed judiciary to remain independent. When Chief Justice was pushed out to Australia, I think that was a step which could not be justified on any ground. So there is no doubt that the previous government had started becoming more and more authoritarian. But you can't deny the positives of the previous government. I think Bangladesh's stupendous growth, both on the economic front as well as on the Human Development Index, was phenomenal and unprecedented. And I think the credit must unambiguously go to Sheikh Hasina and her government.
I mean, even if I don't talk about the human development because that might be controversial, or there will be some counter logics, but economic front, I agree with you, unmatched, unmatched. Data speaks. So,
So even on HDI, you need to see the HDI figures which have come out from international organizations. Now, opposition can keep criticizing it. But the fact is, Bangladesh's birth rate has fallen down. The health and education index has done phenomenally well. You look in all factors, the HDI report, maybe little aberrations may be there, but the HDI report very clearly says that Bangladesh has done phenomenally well. As far as South Asia is concerned, the biggest jump in HDI ranking is for Bangladesh.
Sir, politics again. Now, BNP, this is the party in the limelight because otherwise, for regular calculations, they should have been the claimant to power, as Awami League has been there for 15 years. So naturally, there was a basic anti-establishment was against them. So it was not expected that they would come back to power if there is an election. Assuming that there was no July, if there was a proper election, it was expected that BNP would have come to power. So now at this moment, BNP is in a flux in the sense that they are, on the one hand, they are opposing. They have owned up liberation like anything. They are opposing Yunus. They are opposing the idea of King's Party. They are opposing Jamaat, at loggerheads with Jamaat. But at the same time, BNP has certain weaknesses. The cases against Tariq Rahman, sentenced cases I am talking about, there were 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them. So all Tariq Rahman is not acquitted in all. So and there are certain reports which indicate that BNP might enter into an kind of unofficial agreement or underhand deals with this Yunus and its cohorts, and that they will leave some seats for students. They will accommodate them into the space and they will come to power through this -2 formula. How do you look at it? Is it possible?
See, firstly, let there be no doubt that BNP is a large political party. Ideally, they should have taken advantage of this. The problem with BNP is its leadership is abroad, and considering the present legal cases against them, it's difficult for them to get back. I don't think so now even Khaleda Zia is likely to come back or will be allowed to come back, although she has been sent out for treatment. But I doubt if they'll be. Tariq will not be allowed, because the moment Tariq comes, Yunus will have to go, because then there will be a leader who could actually become a leader. But despite these 2 leaders not being there, BNP has actually not been able to mobilize the masses the way they should have actually. There are other leaders. Probably the BNP doesn't want that any other leadership emerge. So that's probably the reason why the second tier rung leadership is not being allowed to organize a pan-country movement. Otherwise, it is actually the right time for BNP to actually mobilize masses. They could have done it. They could have mobilized it against the government. How can you continue to rule without any election? You have no legitimacy, no constitutional. So they can actually mobilize masses at this point of time, but they are allowing the opportunity to fritter away. So that's what they are trying to do, and that's a regrettable part. Maybe Tariq or somebody feel that they need to come to a short-term compromise with the party and accommodate them, which will, to my mind, will be absolutely ridiculous for them. That will be suicidal for them, because that will ensure that in the next election, BNP is wiped off. Rather than that, let Tariq remain in London, let BNP contest the elections without them. Once their government is formed, they can always do the things what is required. Because let's be very clear, if today there is a free and fair elections, I'm quite fairly certain that it will be BNP which will be able to form the government with its allies or by itself. That is, of course, questionable, but they'll be able to do that. And if BNP tries to join with the so-called Yunus administration, I think it will be suicidal for them. Because all said and done, if not today, few years from now, this administration will be seen as an administration dominated by anti-liberation lobby, because of the recent dalliances with Pakistan-based outfits and Pakistan Army and ISI and all those things. So it will be actually suicidal. BNP has in the past aligned with Jamaat, but Jamaat at this point of time sees an opportunity that they can capture power. They know elections are not in their interest. They don't have the support to win an election. So that is where it is. But I think today BNP on its own has the capacity to emerge as the single largest party, if not gain an outright majority, because Awami League is in disarray. Firstly, their leadership is not available. So even if you have a free and fair elections today, BNP should win. So ideally, BNP should do that, but maybe Tariq has been away from Bangladesh for too long. He probably feels that he needs to get back. So maybe some short time gains could lead to their making a compromise. But I think, to my mind, that will be extremely suicidal. Ideally, what BNP should do is that they should mobilize their second-rung leaders to carry out a nationwide movement asking for elections immediately.
So what you were hinting at, it came to into the discussion even in 2018 when BNP participated, that whether Tariq Rahman was really interested to see that BNP under Fakhrul Mirza does well. So that's inner struggle, and also in these 6 months, they failed to keep the party on its toes and organized. They had an organization problem always, and they earned certain bad name also because of the regular complaints about extortion or whatever. But don't you see as a unique opportunity to Bangladesh? Unfortunately, the political space was dominated by some old people for too long. And the Hasina, that has both Hasina, Khaleda Jia, Tariq Rahman are out of the space. There is sufficient possibility of Awami League to bring up new leaders from the ground, and so is for BNP, isn't it? It's a very unique opportunity to recreate their politics.
There is no doubt that a new generation of leadership needs to evolve in both the political parties. But whoever emerges at this point of time would need the support of Sheikh Hasina and Khaleda in their respective parties. So the rallying call will have to be, especially in Awami League's case, because of the circumstances in which her government was toppled and the way they have gone against Bangabandhu and his family. Uh, Sheikh Hasina would be the rallying point. Now, she can designate a new generation leader to emerge or take over the government. But ideally, the rallying will have to be around her. Similarly, in BNP, I think Khaleda or Tariq will have to be the rallying point. The leadership, of course, can emerge. Now, in BNP's case, they can start it right away because the advantage they have is that there is no bar on their activities. They can, in fact, straight away start away with doing that. They can start demonstrations. They can start on so many grounds they have where they can start demonstrations with against the government, because a common man is suffering under the present circumstances. Electricity, food prices, everything is not going the way the interim administration would have liked. So they can start demonstrations even now. So that's feasible. And I think they are missing the opportunity by letting the time pass.
So now from the Indian perspective, this government has been exceptional in its activities which are against the Indian interest. At no point of time in the future, whether it's Ziaur Rahman, Ershad, BNP, Jamaat government in 2001 and 2004, which was the most infamous, that there was open hobnobbing with army, that ISI guys are coming down to Bangladesh, that the so critical, it is a very symbolic that the terrorists of 10 truck arms all case are getting acquittals. And unofficially, there were meetings. It is told that there were these guys came, Paresh Baruas and all these guys came over there, and there were meetings there. So they have been working, and if we see the statement, how could they say that it is not the government when the Home Minister, the advisor himself, has been issuing very provocative remarks on the border issues? So it has been a case where they are provoking India, and there are many in Bangladesh and in India consider that India is powerless. And
Uh,
is this
there is
I mean, I'm just a point is here that in geopolitics or in international politics, bully power does matter. So, I mean, why? I mean, are we right in our options?
Well, see, you need to be very clear that government always has more information than you and me have it. But based on the information that you and me have, I personally feel, and these are my purely personal views, that government should do nothing that legitimizes this interim administration. Unfortunately, we have taken some steps which uh, could legitimize this government, like visiting Dhaka, etc., which to my mind could have been avoided. We should not legitimize this government because one single step by the government of India, whereby we recognize Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, could unravel this government. Let's be very clear. And there is no doubt that with each passing day, there is a realization that is growing in Bangladesh that India is incapable of doing anything. And that perception is deeply flawed. I think that should not take grounds because before this turmoil took place, everybody in Bangladesh felt that India could do everything and everything in Bangladesh. So that change of perception will not be good for India in the long term. And that is where I think we need to do something. And we need to do something fast because procrastination is not an option as far as Bangladesh is concerned.
Very nicely put. And you're right. I was being soft in my statements. That is exactly the perception that India can't do anything. And that India is looking up to the US. So, though it's not very respectable for a regional power to look at someone else. So, Prime Minister is meeting the US President next week. Do you expect, what is your expectation from that meeting? Or do you have any expectation?
See, firstly, let's be very clear that the changeover in Bangladesh was not facilitated by State Department, though US had a very major role to play, but it was primarily facilitated by US aid. Now, which US aid having been curtailed, there is a problem as far as the interim administration is concerned. Its economic prowess has been actually curtailed. So to that extent, they are under pressure. And one statement from the United States at this stage would have a defining action. Because India taking an action will be far more radical rather than US doing it. So it may be prudent that Prime Minister Modi might discuss this issue with President Trump. And if Trump imposes some amount of tariffs on Bangladesh uh, on grounds of they're not having an inclusive government, not having a democratic government, the Bangladeshi's economy will crumble. Because please understand, an export-based economy, which is based on one single segment, namely apparels, if actually the orders get cancelled or if there is a tariffs imposed on them, they'll become extremely uncompetitive. So US has an edge as far as that is concerned, though I am not very optimistic that considering Trump's short attention span and the manner in which he keeps doing flip-flops, he may take or may not take an action against Bangladesh. But it's a definite positive that he wants to meet the Prime Minister. He's invited Prime Minister for a meeting that shows that in his calculus, India is a very, very important fact. Most people in Bangladesh also realize that President Trump is close to India. I think there is a realization in India's neighborhood that President Trump is close to India more than it is in India. So that factor, India's neighbors perceive that with Trump administration, India would have a major role to play. Now, how much we are able to get is a dependable question. But even if a statement is made by a US envoy or Secretary of State that this is not acceptable, it will create a lot of problem. The interim administration might crumble. One strong statement from the US at this stage against the interim administration saying that elections are a must. Without the elections, we will not be able to allow Bangladeshi imports or we'll have to impose a punitive tariff or any such statement. One statement alone will bring down Yunus.
That's more than certain. Thank you very much, sir. It is one of the best interviews I've had. Thank you so much.